when Keanu Reeves delivered the final line of the dark, complex character that had held his body and soul captive for months. The director's call of "cut" sounded to his ears like the release of a shackle. The role had demanded he embody a man living on society's fringe, scorned and solitary. And Keanu, to feel every fiber of this man's being, had isolated himself for weeks, transforming his appearance into the weary, disheveled, and uncaring state the character required. His overgrown matted beard, his unruly hair cascading to his shoulders, and his tired eyes bearing the weight of sleepless nights and the character's inner turmoil. All these were remnants of an identity he now needed to shed. That night, as the shoot wrapped, sitting in the dim light of his hotel room, staring at the final page of the script, an indescribable emptiness mixed with a light sense of freedom washed over him. This role had taught him much. The darker aspects of human nature, society's cruel judgments, and most importantly, it had once again reminded him how deceptive appearances could be. Now, it was time to return to his own taut normal, to the familiar yet equally complex reality of being Keanu Reeves. This transformation required more than just a shower and a change of clean clothes. It was a kind of purification, a renewal, both physical and mental. The next day, when his manager David called, Keanu's voice still carried the weariness of the role. "Buddy, you nailed it again. The critics are already buzzing," David had said cheerfully. "But it's time to shake off that gloom. Get yourself together. People have missed you." Keanu smiled at David's well-intentioned effort. He truly did need to get himself together. A few days later, his old friend Olivia, one of Hollywood's perennially polished and dazzling stars with whom he'd shared the screen, invited him to dinner. Seeing Keanu's latest state, Olivia had frowned with affectionate concern. "Keanu, my dear," she'd said thusly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your devotion to your art is admirable, but it's high time you shed that character and reignite your own light. Let me tell you a secret, darling. You simply must visit Elysian Fields Aesthetics and Renewal Sanctuary. It's the city's most incredible, most transformative haven. It's a wonderland. They'll reinvent you, body and soul." Keanu knew Olivia's fondness for such sanctuaries, Elysian Fields. Even the name sounded overly pretentious, too Hollywood for his taste. He was generally a man of more understated, more authentic places. But Olivia was so sincere, so insistent, that he found himself saying, "I'll check it out." Perhaps, he mused, after such an intense role, losing himself in such artificial luxury might, ironically, help him return to his own reality. And then there was that irrepressible curiosity. Within these gilded cages created by fame and fortune, how were people truly treated? What lay hidden beneath that shimmering surface? This curiosity was an invisible force, drawing him towards Elysian Fields. He didn't make an appointment. He didn't inform anyone. A few days later, as he set out for that renowned street, he was again in his most comfortable, most unassuming attire. Worn-out boots, a faded t-shirt, loose linen pants that looked almost patched, but were actually a designer piece. And, of course, the unkempt hair and beard, a legacy from his recent role, which had almost become a part of him. This was a conscious choice. He wanted to go there not as Keanu Reeves, but simply as a man, to see the true face of the establishment. This would be his quiet, personal, social experiment. The avenue where Elysian Fields was located was one of the city's wealthiest districts. Every storefront displayed an unattainable luxury. A silent parade of the latest model sports cars glided down the roads. The sanctuary itself resembled a modern art museum, with a minimalist facade of dark, anthracite-colored massive glass panes, bearing only the elegantly scripted gold letters, Elysian Fields. There was no clutter of signs, no unnecessary embellishment. Everything whispered of measured wealth and exclusivity. Keanu parked his car a few blocks away, in a more modest area, and walked. As he approached the sanctuary, he paused for a moment. Even from the outside, the interior hinted at a world apart. He took a deep breath and walked towards those enormous, almost invisible glass doors. As if sensing his approach, the doors slid open with a silent, smooth motion. The moment he stepped inside, all the noise and chaos of the outside world magically vanished. It was replaced by an almost tangible silence and a heady, hard-to-derive scent that hung in the air. Not like expensive perfume, but more a blend of rare flowers and exotic oils. The space was a vast lobby. The floors were covered in gleaming black marble that seemed veined with gold dust. Enormous abstract paintings by famous contemporary artists adorned the walls, artfully illuminated by hidden light sources. The ceiling, high as a cathedral dome, featured a gigantic chandelier composed of thousands of crystal pieces. Soft, meditative music, seeming to emanate from within the walls rather than from speakers, enveloped the space. Directly opposite the entrance stood a massive reception desk, crafted from solid wood and adorned with bronze details that looked like works of art themselves. Behind it sat a young woman in her late 20s, with porcelain white skin, impeccably drawn lips, and cheekbones that seemed sculpted. Her platinum blonde hair was styled flawlessly. Even her uniform looked like a bespoke designer creation. Dark, perfectly tailored, minimalist, yet incredibly chic. Her name tag, in elegant italics, read Genevieve, Client Relations Coordinator. As Keanu approached the desk, the professional, almost artificial smile on Genevieve's face froze for an instant. Her eyes, swift as lightning, scanned Keanu from head to toe. It was a scan that lasted less than a second, but weighed and measured everything. In that moment, Keanu received the first signal of the invisible but sharp rules of this gilded cage. "Welcome to Elysian Fields," Genevieve said, her voice as smooth and fluid as a cello, yet devoid of warmth, conveying more of a memorized courtesy than genuine welcome. "How may I assist you, sir?" The almost imperceptible hesitation before the word "sir" and the slight curl of her lips betrayed her internal questioning of whether Keanu was suitable for this establishment. "Hello," Keanu replied, his voice low and calm as usual, trying to appear unaffected by her obvious assessment. "I need to pull myself together a bit. I came for a haircut and a beard trim, I suppose." Genevieve's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch. It was as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Hair and beard? Grooming?" she asked, an ill-concealed surprise in her voice. Of course, sir. May I have a moment, please?" She picked up the receiver of the phone, her eyes continuing to scan Keanu as she dialed. She spoke to the other party in a hushed whisper, too low for Keanu to hear. Her expression grew serious as she spoke, her lips pressed tightly together. After hanging up, she turned back to Keanu. That forced smile had returned, but the questioning look in her eyes was even more pronounced. "Our senior style director, Miss Serafina, will be with you shortly to assist. If you wish, we can offer you some of our specially prepared herbal teas or freshly squeezed fruit juices in our waiting lounge." Keanu replied, "Thank you, I'll just wait," and walked towards the area Genevieve indicated with a wave of her hand. A section furnished with plush, cream-colored velvet armchairs and crystal coffee tables laden with international art and fashion magazines. From where he sat, he surveyed his surroundings more carefully. Every object, every accessory, reflected a carefully curated wealth and a refined taste. The other clients, few in number, but each looking as if they'd stepped off the cover of a fashion magazine, spoke amongst themselves in barely audible whispers, occasionally casting furtive, curious, but mostly judgmental glances towards Keanu. He was used to these looks, but this time it was different. This time they weren't judging him, but the disguise he wore. This situation made his little social experiment all the more interesting. This gilded cage's inhabitants. How much further would they go in their treatment of this stranger? It wasn't long before a pair of clicking heels, creating a rhythmic sound on the marble floor, announced the arrival of a tall, slender woman of swan-like grace from the other end of the waiting lounge. Her platinum blonde hair was cut in a sharp, geometric bob that exposed her nape, a style that further emphasized her high cheekbones and long neck. She wore a figure-hugging black dress with padded shoulders and an architectural cut. The simplicity of her dress contrasted with the single strand of diamonds around her neck and the enormous solitaire diamond ring on her finger. Her gait was as confident and measured as that of a runway model. This was undoubtedly Miss Serafina, the senior style director. As Serafina stopped in front of Keanu's armchair, her face bore an expression even more distant, almost icily professional, than Genevieve's. Her eyes, the coldest shade of blue, scanned Keanu slowly and deliberately from head to toe, as if she were examining an insect. This gaze was not just an assessment. It was a display of power. Mr. Reeves, is it?" she asked, her voice velvety smooth but equally commanding and laced with a hint of a sneer. "Genevieve informed me that you have a request for a comprehensive renewal. Could you perhaps elaborate a little more on what kind of renewal you envision?" A faint, condescending smile played on her lips as she uttered the word renewal. Keanu rose to his feet. He was a few inches taller than Serafina, but the dominant energy the woman exuded made the height difference seem insignificant. "Yes, Miss Serafina," Keanu replied, maintaining his composure. "I suppose in the simplest terms, I need a good haircut and for my beard to be, well, brought into line." Serafina's perfectly sculpted, thin eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. Brought into line. A rather minimalist request." Then, with a gesture of her hand that clearly meant, "Follow me," she turned and began to walk down one of the marble corridors. Keanu silently followed her. The corridors they passed through resembled a labyrinth. Each door opened into a different treatment unit. Skincare, massage therapies, manicure-pedicure suites. Framed photographs of Elysian Field's award-winning stylists with their famous clients adorned the walls. Each frame was like a testament to fame and luxury. Serafina led Keanu into a spacious private grooming room, lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and equipped with ultra-modern high-tech equipment. In the center of the room stood a futuristic-looking barber chair made of black leather. "Please have a seat, Mr. Reeves," Serafina said, gesturing towards the chair. "First, I need to analyze your hair and beard structure, or rather, its current condition in detail. Provided, of course, we can discover a structure to work with beneath this dense and tangled canopy." There was a glint of mockery in her eyes as she spoke that last sentence. Keanu sat down without a word. He met his own reflection in the mirror. Serafina's words stung like needles, but he was determined not to show any reaction. He had to see this experiment through to the end. As Serafina donned a pair of thin, black latex gloves, She called out to a young apprentice stylist. Liam, his name tag read, stylist intern, who stood nervously by a glass cabinet at the other end of the room. Liam, darling, please prepare a selection of our most potent clarifying and detoxifying shampoos for Mr. Reeves. And for his beard, I believe an industrial-grade trimmer, or perhaps even a small garden strimmer, might be more appropriate. Liam, blushing crimson at Serafina's words, shot Keanu a nervous, apologetic glance. It was clear he too suffered from Serafina's cruel and sarcastic demeanor and was extremely uncomfortable, but lacked the courage to say or do anything. All he could manage was a mumbled, "Right away, Miss Serafina," as he quickly turned towards the supply cabinet. As Serafina touched Keanu's hair and beard, which she did with her fingertips, with great revulsion, as if touching something poisonous, she continued her commentary. "We are indeed facing a rather neglected situation here, Mr. Reeves. At Elysian Fields, we are accustomed to working with a more meticulous, more refined canvas for our artistic touches. This, as you pointed out, will truly be a complete transformation. And you will appreciate, of course, that such comprehensive and detailed procedures require both considerable time and, in parallel, a rather substantial financial commitment." Keanu was looking not at his own reflection in the mirror, but at Serafina's. Every micro-expression, every word from the woman, exposed an ugly prejudice, a shallow mindset, and a crude materialism hidden behind those luxurious, polished walls. "You need not worry about the cost, Miss Serafina," Keanu said, his voice devoid of emotion but sharp. "What matters to me is the end result of this transformation and the treatment I received during this process. Oh, you can have no doubt about the result," Serafina said with artificial confidence and a haughty air. "This is Elysian Fields after all. Excellence is our standard. However, first, it's important to clarify that each stage of this kind of creation process, deep cleansing, special therapies, cutting, styling, coloring, and of course, the rare, exotic ingredient products we will be using, is itemized and billed in detail. And the total sum will likely be somewhat higher than your current expectations. Especially for a special case like yours, it will be absolutely necessary for us to deviate from standard procedures, apply additional treatments, and use only our most exclusive, most expensive products." The woman was openly, and without any hesitation, implying that Keanu couldn't afford these services, perhaps even that he had come there merely out of curiosity, to look and leave. Just then, Liam re-entered, carrying a tray with a crystal bowl of frothed, exotically scented shampoo, alongside various brushes, scissors, and expensive-looking grooming oils. Serafina cast a disdainful, scornful glance at the meticulously prepared tray. "No, Liam, no. Not those, sweetie. Please bring the ones from our Elixirium Aurum range, the most expensive, most concentrated ones, the ones with the 24-karat gold particles. And yes, don't you dare forget that special white truffle and caviar extract beard and mustache serum. As you can see, Mr. Reeves's skin and beard are in desperate, desperate need of it." As she said this last sentence, she glanced at Keanu out of the corner of her eye, a sarcastic smirk playing on her lips. Liam, his cheeks flushed crimson with embarrassment, simply nodded, not knowing what to say to Keanu after Serafina's humiliating words, and quickly left the room. Keanu's eyes once again met Serafina's reflection in the mirror. There was a brazen, challenging, almost devilish glint in the woman's eyes. It was as if she were saying, Let's see how much of this luxury, this splendor, and this humiliation you can endure, Mr. Just Reeves." Keanu took a deep breath. The walls of this gilded cage were closing in on him, but he was determined to see this silent war through to the end. While Serafina examined the gold-plated bottles and crystal jars Liam had brought, she continued her barrage of barbed comments directed at Keanu. It was as if Keanu wasn't even there, as if she were preparing a report about him. "I'm observing significant dryness and damage to the scalp, most likely due to prolonged neglect in the use of low-quality products. As for the beard, well, it's a complete disaster. Split ends, tangles, uneven coloration. We're looking at a comprehensive restoration job here." Each diagnosis was like an accusation. From his reflection in the mirror, Keanu watched Serafina's every move, every micro-expression. The woman's aim wasn't just to provide a service. Her aim was to belittle Keanu, to convince him that he didn't belong there, and perhaps even to make him give up and leave. But Keanu, with the experience he'd gained over years in the ruthless world of Hollywood, had developed an immunity to such psychological games. Maintaining his composure, he asked, "Well, Miss Serafina, what specific techniques and products are you considering for this restoration job? I'm particularly curious. What exactly are the benefits of this truffle and caviar extract serum for beards that you mentioned?" Serafina seemed taken aback by Keanu asking such a specific and knowledgeable question. She paused for a moment, a brief flicker of hesitation in her eyes. She probably hadn't thought that this shabby man in front of her could have the slightest idea about the ingredients of such luxury products. But she quickly recovered. "Ah, Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "These are rather technical details. There's no need for you to trouble your head with such things. Just leave yourself in our expert hands. After all, at Elysian Fields, each of our clients undergoes a bespoke grooming protocol, prepared as if creating a work of art, and the products we use possess patented ingredients, formulated exclusively for us, which you won't find on the market." "I see," Keanu said. "Patented ingredients? Impressive." The subtle irony in his voice seemed to escape Serafina, or perhaps she chose to ignore it. Serafina picked up a pair of sharp scissors, which looked as if they were tipped with silver, and began to twirl them between her fingers with an unnerving rhythm. "You know, Mr. Reeves," she continued, her voice now more insolent, more challenging, "some people come here merely to breathe the magical atmosphere of Elysian Fields, to spend a few hours here, and then to be able to tell everyone around them, 'I had a treatment at Elysian Fields.' But then, when they arrive at the cashier, when they see the bill for that magical atmosphere and bespoke protocols, they experience a small, sometimes even a large, shock. I genuinely wouldn't want you to have such an unpleasant surprise, for your dreams to be shattered." This was now an open insult. Keanu's facial muscles tensed slightly. The last drops of his patience were about to run out. This woman wasn't just doing her job. She was consciously and deliberately trying to belittle him, to drive him away. This wasn't just a matter of prejudice. This was an assault on human dignity. And Keanu could not allow it any longer. "Miss Serafina," Keanu said, his voice now ice-cold and resolute. He looked directly into the woman's eyes in the mirror. "I believe, rather than wasting any more time with you, I need to have an urgent discussion with the person responsible for the general operations and customer satisfaction policies of this studio, namely Mr. Alistair Thorne, about this bespoke protocol I've experienced and the professionalism you've displayed. Is he in the studio at the moment, or should I call him? Serafina froze for a moment at Keanu's unexpected outburst and the sharp authority in his voice. The sarcastic smile vanished from her face, replaced by an expression of surprise and perhaps even a slight apprehension. But she quickly regained her composure. She thought this vulgar man was bluffing. "Mr. Thorne?" she said, reverting to her haughty tone. "Ah, yes. He's currently occupied with very important international projects. I highly doubt he has precious time to spare for just anyone, especially for someone like you who doesn't quite fit the standards of Elysian Fields. If you have a complaint, Genevieve at the reception will gladly provide you with a customer feedback form." Just then, a calm but authoritative male voice was heard from the corridor just outside the room. "Is there a problem, Serafina? The sounds coming from in here are not particularly to my liking." It was the voice of Alistair Thorne, the legendary founder and owner of Elysian Fields. When Alistair Thorne's voice echoed in the corridor, Serafina's feigned self-confidence instantly evaporated. Her color drained, and her eyes widened in fear. Mr. Thorne rarely interfered in the studio's daily operations, and his unexpected appearance usually signaled a serious problem. The door to the room slowly opened, and in walked Alistair Thorne, a man in his early 60s, but still looking fit and charismatic, dressed in an impeccably tailored anthracite suit. His silver-gray hair was neatly combed, and his eyes sparkled with years of experience and a sharp intellect. He first looked at Serafina, who stood anxiously, then at Keanu, who was sitting calmly in the barber chair, though his facial expression indicated that something was amiss. "Serafina, what is going on here?" Mr. Thorne asked, his voice calm but questioning. "Is there an issue with our client?" Serafina began to stammer, unable to form a coherent sentence. "Well, no, Mr. Thorne. Yes, it's just Mr. Reeves." Mr. Thorne's eyebrows rose slightly. "Mr. Reeves?" he murmured. His gaze returned to Keanu. He scrutinized him more carefully. Long, disheveled hair, an unkempt beard, tired but familiar eyes. And in that moment, a flash of realization struck Alistair Thorne. His eyes widened in astonishment. His jaw dropped. His face transformed, first with surprise, then disbelief, and finally with dawning recognition and an expression of almost terrified respect. Oh my goodness," Mr. Thorne whispered, his voice trembling. He was beside Keanu in a few strides. "It can't be. Is it truly you, Mr. Keanu Reeves?" His voice was barely audible from excitement and shock. One of Hollywood's biggest stars, one of its most enigmatic and respected actors, was sitting in his salon, in this state, in an unrecognizable disguise. And Serafina. God, what had Serafina said to him? How had she treated him? Serafina's face, upon hearing the name and witnessing Mr. Thorne's reaction, turned a deathly, almost purplish shade of white. Her knees felt weak. The expensive, gold-plated scissors she was still holding slipped from her numb fingers once more, clattering onto the marble floor, the metallic sound exploding like a bomb in the tomb-like silence of the room. All her arrogant, self-assured, know-it-all demeanor vanished in an instant, replaced by pure terror and shame. At that moment, she wished the earth would open up and swallow her whole. Keanu Reeves slowly rose from the chair where he had been sitting. There was no anger on his face, no mockery, no expression of triumph. Only a deep, profound calmness, and perhaps a little disappointment, a little sadness. He turned to Mr. Thorne. He extended his hand. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. It's me," he said, his voice soft as ever, but now possessing a weight that everyone in that room felt down to their bones. And I believe we have some very, very important matters to discuss with you, with your esteemed employee, Miss Serafina, and perhaps even with some of your other employees and clients. Mr. Thorne shook Keanu's extended hand almost reverently. Then, with an expression of horror mixed with rage, he turned to Serafina. Serafina, tell me immediately what happened. Mr. Reeves, how did you treat him? What did you say to him? His voice trembled with a rarely heard anger. Serafina could no longer hold back her tears. Sobbing uncontrollably, she tried to speak in broken sentences. I didn't know, Mr. Thorne. I swear I didn't know. He looked so different. I was just trying to protect our studio standards. Its image. I made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Thorne. Her words were lost amidst sobs of remorse and shame. Those luxurious gold-plated walls, those expensive mirrors, now bore witness to a bitter truth, an ugly prejudice, and a profound regret. The flawless, sparkling image of Elysian Fields had, that day, in that moment, shattered into a million pieces before the quiet but resolute stance of Keanu Reeves. And everyone, especially Serafina and Alistair Thorne, began to desperately wonder how they would ever pick up the pieces from under this rubble. The storm was only just beginning. Alistair Thorne listened to Serafina's tearful and incoherent explanations, his expression growing darker by the second. This was one of the most shameful moments of his career. Elysian Fields was not just a grooming studio. It was a symbol of prestige, and such profound disrespect was an unforgivable error. He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. Serafina, please calm down and leave the room, he said, his voice ice-cold but controlled. We will speak later in much greater detail. He then turned to Liam. Liam, you too. Please step outside and wait by the door. Ensure no one disturbs us. Liam nodded with a grateful expression and quickly exited the room with Serafina. The room was now left with Keanu Reeves and Alistair Thorne. Mr. Thorne turned to Keanu with an embarrassed expression. Mr. Reeves, I truly don't know what to say, how to apologize. For this terrible experience you've endured, on behalf of myself and the entire Elysian Fields family, I apologize 1,000 times over. What happened is unacceptable. Serafina's behavior, and that of any other staff involved, is utterly inconsistent with our institution's core values and the deep respect we hold for you. Keanu could see Mr. Thorne's sincere remorse. Mr. Thorne, he said, his voice still in that calm tone. What matters isn't what was done to me. What matters is that this kind of mentality, this kind of behavior, can exist even here, in a prestigious institution like yours. If it had been an unknown, ordinary person in my place, they would have received the same treatment, and perhaps no one would have ever known. That is the real problem. Mr. Thorne bowed his head. You're right, Mr. Reeves. You are absolutely right. This incident has taught us a very painful lesson. It seems that beneath our polished image, there were very serious issues we needed to address. He paused for a moment, then looked at Keanu with a hopeful gaze. So, what can we do? What would you have us do to make amends for this situation, to alleviate even a fraction of our embarrassment towards you? Please, whatever you wish, we are at your service. Keanu slowly took a few steps around the room. The luxury and opulence outside now seemed even more meaningless to him. I don't want anything, Mr. Thorne, he said. All I want is a change in understanding. I want everyone who works here to understand that every person who walks through that door regardless of their appearance, their clothes, or their financial status, deserves respect simply because they are human. He turned his face to Mr. Thorne again. Perhaps, he continued, if I were to have a brief conversation with all your staff, and if you deem it appropriate, even with the clients who were in the salon at the time and witnessed this incident, it might help this message to resonate more effectively. My aim is not to shame or blame anyone, but simply to create awareness. Mr. Thorne's eyes lit up. That would be wonderful, Mr. Reeves. To hear this message from someone like you would be an unforgettable lesson for everyone. Please, let's do it however you wish. I'll make the necessary arrangements immediately. A short time later, Elysian Field's largest and most opulent VIP lounge was hosting an unexpected meeting. All the stylists, therapists, receptionists, and even cleaning staff were there, led by Serafina. A few elite clients who had been in the salon during the incident also attended, with a mixture of curiosity and a little apprehension. All eyes were on Keanu Reeves, who stood in the middle of the lounge with a calm yet impressive posture. Keanu took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was neither loud nor angry. On the contrary, it was soft, thoughtful, yet every word resonated in the hearts of everyone in the lounge. "Hello, everyone," he began. "The reason we've gathered here today in this unexpected manner is due to an unfortunate incident that I myself experienced a short while ago. But I see this incident not as an occasion for blame or judgment, but as an opportunity for all of us to learn something together, to draw a lesson." A profound silence filled the lounge. Everyone held their breath, waiting for every word that would come from Keanu's mouth. "You know," Keanu continued, "I'm an actor. My job is to embody different characters, to try to understand different lives. Sometimes this requires me to make significant changes to my appearance, just like today. But there's something we forget. All of us, every day, whether we realize it or not, wear various masks. And unfortunately, most of the time, we judge each other not by the true self behind these masks, but only by our current outward appearance, the clothes we wear, the material possessions we have." His gaze swept across the lounge, trying to make eye contact with each and every face. "Today, I was that shabby, unkempt, perhaps unbelonging man for you. And the attitudes displayed towards me were, unfortunately, a painful reflection of this prejudice. But what if I truly had been that man? What if the person you saw had genuinely never stepped into such a luxurious place in his life, but had come here with a moment of courage or a dream? How would you have made him feel? Would you have given him the message, 'You are not worthy of being here'?" Serafina, tears streaming down her face, bowed her head even lower. It was evident that some other employees also had tears in their eyes. "Look," Keanu said, his voice softening even more. "We can all make mistakes. What's important is to learn from these mistakes and not to repeat them. True wealth is not the numbers in your bank account or the brand of clothes you wear. True wealth is the kindness in your heart, the gentleness in your soul, and the respect you show to others. The most valuable gift you can give a person is to accept them as they are, to make them feel that you value them." At the end of his speech, a deep, impressive silence fell over the lounge. Then, slowly, first one applause, then another, and then a heartfelt ovation filled the entire room. This applause was not just for Keanu Reeves, but also for the human values that his words had awakened in their hearts. Keanu nodded with a faint smile. "I hope," he said, that today's experience doesn't just stay here. I hope that when each of you leaves here, you will look at the people around you with different eyes. Remember, even the brightest lights cannot illuminate our souls as much as the warmth of a sincere smile. When Keanu Reeves left Elysian Fields that day, he didn't just leave behind faces filled with astonishment and regret. He also planted the seeds of profound introspection and change. That evening, Alistair Thorne held a long and serious meeting with all his staff. Serafina, in tears, apologized to everyone and said there was no excuse for her behavior. Mr. Thorne did not fire Serafina, but he gave her a very stern warning and stated that all necessary measures would be taken to ensure such an incident would never happen again. From the very next morning, a noticeable change began to take place at Elysian Fields. Comprehensive training sessions on customer relations, empathy, and unbiased communication were initiated for the staff. A stylish sign with gold lettering was hung at the studio's entrance. "Welcome to Elysian Fields. Here, every guest is a star to us." Keanu's visit that day quickly spread by word of mouth. However, it was not recounted as a scandal, but as an inspiring story. From that day forward, Elysian Fields took significant steps towards becoming an address not only for luxury and splendor, but also for genuine kindness and the value placed on human beings. As for Keanu, a few days after that incident, he was already in a completely different city, preparing for a new film project, a new character. But those few hours he had spent at Elysian Fields had also left deep imprints on his mind. He had once again seen how easily people could judge, how deceptive appearances could be. And once again, he had clung to that unwavering belief within himself. True value lies not in one's attire or appearance, but in one's heart and actions. Months later, Liam, that timid intern stylist at Elysian Fields, one day encountered a young man at the studio's entrance who looked a bit disheveled and hesitant, much like Keanu Reeves had on that fateful day. The young man had asked, Can I just look around?" Liam, for a moment, remembered Keanu's appearance that day. With a sincere smile on his face, he said, "Of course, welcome. How may I help you?" And at that moment, Liam felt that the seeds Keanu Reeves had sown that day were beginning to sprout. The walls of the gilded cage, perhaps, were slowly starting to crumble.